Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be continuing our series on choosing a trainer and looking at this lovely Piper Warrior 2. Now the Piper Warrior 2 is not a default airplane in flight sim, but I sat there going, well, seeing as I have a couple hours in this one in the real world too, let's throw it in, why not? Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, when you climb in this thing, remember this is a third-party product. They spent a good amount of time kind of adding little bells and whistles on it, but look at these seats. Oh my god. So the fun thing about a Piper Warrior, for those of you who are not familiar, is when you unlock the thing, you have to remember that the door itself, you basically, when you pop it, you have to climb up on this wing and drop down. And when I say drop down, you can't really see this here, but literally this is a ledge. And when you get into the seat, you climb over this seat and you go thump, and you basically land in this chair. Now, if you want to fly this thing in the back seat, you have got to be short or you're going to smack your head right there. It's actually kind of fun. So anyway, let's go ahead and close the door, and I'll lock it here, and then we lock it up here, and I remember grabbing it, and I go thunk, and like that, does a little snap like that. So I got to appreciate that level of detail. Other things is taking a quick peek around. This is Piper's. When I think of a Piper aircraft, I think of utilitarian. You know, Cessna 172 got a lot of practicality, a lot of kind of general use for it. But you know, when it comes to Piper, we just need an airplane that goes, and that's one of the things I sort of respect about the company. And I also like the fact that some of the features they built into it made it a little bit easier to operate. So for us, we have the one modeled with a 750 and a 650 GPS, which is awesome. If you did not have that capability, of course, we could actually reach over here. We could disable this. The fact I can recharge the battery and refill the oil and stuff like that if I wanted to. I can actually come over here and set this to a GPS 100. Oh my gosh, look at this. Oh, I love stuff like this. I don't know, I have a soft spot for that. Of course, we can come over here too. We can do dual GPSs. Again, these are the ones that come with Flight Sim. We can do a single GNS5. We can do the GTN 750. But for me, I am just so old-fashioned. I love this GPS 100. So we're stuck with that. The other thing we can do, too, is we can actually disable the HSI and go with a DI, but I'm going to go with an HSI because, you know, why not? And we can also save and all those other, oh, it's so cool, it's so cool. But anyway, let's go ahead and take care on all those things. I am now done with that part of this. Now I'm just going to concentrate on the airplane itself. So the airplane itself, like I said, utilitarian. This thing is designed to be simple. I mean, I got my little timer, I got my little fuel selector right down on the floor. I always forget to change this thing, so I set myself a timer. It's got this ugly little light. In the real world, this thing would not be that clean. It'd be a little bit orange or amber because the sun basically bleached the bejesus out of it over the years. I love the fact that we can hide this sucker. We've got all of our little nav switches and stuff kind of hanging down here. The key between here, and one of the things I always respected about this plane is it started right away, and I always had trouble with Cessnas. But again, let's see what else we got. We have all our standard instrumentation. Everything's easy to read here, and notice for the purposes of linear mixture, we have a nice and easy to read system here. We also have, and yes, we actually have one of those, an ADF and an NDB receiver, which is actually pretty cool. 2 CDIs, which is wonderful because that gives us the capability to go ahead and capture all sorts of instrument approaches. We have a little switch right here where we can pop between the different CDI modes. In this case, I'll pop it over to GPS because why not? Good old-fashioned radio set. I'm going to have to ding you some points here because of the fact we don't have the standby option on our radios. That's irritating. Obviously, if I switch to the GTN 750, I do have that capability. But for this, just being a straight-up dial-in the frequency kind of a radio, that's actually sort of frustrating to use because we can't load in the new ATIS and then swap it over. But again, our speaker control is roughly the same. All right, next problem, and one of the things that makes me crazy about Pipers, is the fact that our fuel system is a left and right system, as I just kind of hinted at a few minutes ago. We have to change this every 30 minutes or so. I know more than one pilot, what they would actually do is they'd flip it to one side, run it out of gas, and then when the engine goes, they'd switch quickly to the right side. That's a technical term, by the way. That's scary, and it's a good way to make sure that if your fuel system is clogged, you are going to get crashed. Luckily for us, we do have a world's basic autopilot down here, which, again, any autopilot is a good autopilot. So this is a slightly different direction. So anyway, stop gushing. Let's get working. So we're going to go ahead and take the mixture. We're going to slap it to that direction. We're going to take a look at what time of day it is. I'm looking at my watch real quickly here, and it looks like it's on 9:02 in the morning here. So we're going to be in the left fuel tank. Actually, I'm sorry, we're going to be in the right fuel tank because it's going to point to the right side of the clock. I know you're all sitting there going, okay, sure. Just remember that, again, different techniques. Starting this thing is quite a breeze. There's this gigantic master switch. I just love this thing. So we come down here. We go ahead and flip on the anti-collision lights. Click these 2 switches on. All of our switches pop on. We hear a gyro pop on. You're going to get this really, really angry little red light that's going to kind of remind you that things are not working well for you, which is okay. We're going to look out the window as we always do. We're going to yell the word clear, and then we're going to jam the key into the thing. Not really jam. It's like a click. And now the neat thing is with this plane is if it's a really hot day, you actually can go like this with the mixture and crank it, and it'll start no problem. But for me, I'm just going to leave it like that and go crank. Didn't need to add those human sound effects, but too bad deal. All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and put that one away. We're going to give it a few moments. It's going to get a little grumpy at us as it kind of catches up. We want to do our 1,000 RPM here to kind of get this thing at the right speed. There we go. Reset that, reset that. Everything's looking pretty good so far. Now, again, like I said, I love stuff like this because of its, remarkable simplicity. I don't have anything complicated. I don't have buttons in places that they don't need to be. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. Go ahead and pop on my Avionics switch. Go ahead and click that switch real fast. Everybody starts to kind of warm up. This guy right here, we look at how, oh my gosh, look at this thing. It's just like self-test in progress. I will tell you when it is time to fly. But again, stuff like that just cracks me up because it's so cool. Pop on our DME. Look at how ancient this is. Oh, I love that stuff. Again, many of you are like, oh, why do you like the old-fashioned things? It's one of those things that, you kind of love what you kind of started with. Yep, looks like it works fine. And that's just kind of how it goes. All right, enough gushing. We've got flying to do. Let's go. So this aircraft, of course, is a really weird nose wheel steering in the real world. The nose wheel steering, because the good folks over at Cessna basically said you can't use our specific style of steering, you've got to invent your own. They did. So on a Cessna steering, for those of you not sure, on the ground, you basically have a bar that grabs onto the wheel and allows you to rotate it back and forth. The people over in Piperland said, oh, well, we can't have that. So they came up basically a bungee system for steering. So when you put your feet on those pedals, what's going to happen is you're going to feel every single bump in the ground. And this is what your actual experience driving around on the ground is going to feel like. Go ahead and couple taps of the brake. We're going to go pop ourselves onto the runway here, kind of make our way down. I love how crisp the nose wheel steering is on this thing. It's like laser guided. Awesome. So as we're going along, let's take a look at some other fun little accoutrements inside of this lovely cockpit here. I noticed my flap handle is a bar, which is very different than other people have remembered, which, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It really depends on your style. I'm a huge fan of it because it gives you a lot of control, and I'll show you a fun trick to do with it a little bit later, where you can see your boo-boo. I'll go ahead and show you what happens if you try to slap that thing on the floor while you're still under heavy load. Let me give you a hint. It doesn't like it. So we're going to bounce our way down to the end of the runway here. Again, we're here. This is a 4 Bravo 9, or this is Simsbury Airport. Very tiny, quiet airport. There's a very large airport right over the side of the mountains on that side. And we're going to be taking off runway 21 again. Like I said, try to keep things consistent as far as winds and stuff like that goes. A couple taps of the old brakes here to kind of get ourselves all nice and lined up. Looks pretty good. Remember, runway behind us is worthless. And how you doing, Mr. Lake? Turn. This is another aircraft where you can do the flight instructor shimmy very effectively. Like I can turn this thing on a dime if I have to. All right, looks pretty good. Line ourselves up. This is a short field, so we're going to go ahead and apply a short field policy here. Short field policy on this aircraft is real simple. We go click, and now we're on short field policy. That's it. And again, I love how fast those flaps go up. In the real world, I can go click, and they're exactly where they need to be. Let's go ahead and give everything the quick little windshield wiper here. Make sure everything's working. All right, feels pretty good. I only smacked into my microphone twice there. Let's go. So I'm going to smoothly apply full power, and let's go. So this thing's kind of fun because it should be very jerky. It's a very loud. It has a weird vibration that it does, which I've got no problem with. I find it kind of fun. And we get up to 55 knots. We're going to lift the nose up. And this is what it does usually. It sticks to the ground, and then it goes, just kidding, and suddenly bounces itself up into the air. It's just kind of a Piper thing. Now, don't touch the flap handle. Don't do it. If you do that, you're going to hear meep as the thing basically stalls into those trees directly where the garbage dump is. Go ahead and pop that sucker down. And we're just going to slowly milk the flaps. And we're good to go. So now one of the weird parts of this aircraft, and this is very different than all the other trainers we're going to see, is the fact that this particular aircraft uses a stabilator as opposed to a conventional elevator on the back. If you actually look, when you move this, you can see that the whole tail moves together, which gives you this strange sensitivity that's just kind of the nature of the Warrior here. The nature of the Warrior, go figure. So we're going to go ahead and start slowly turning and making our way over towards the practice area. Now this is where you really want to have like your GTN 750 and everything, because that gives you that ability to go ahead and see exactly where you are. You can see what your airspeed are. You have a lot more control over your radio settings and everything along those lines. But for us, we're just going to kick it old school here. All right, so let's go ahead and get ourselves on the correct speed for our climb here, which for this one's actually fairly quick. And again, this is got those big, thick wings there that help us out a little bit here. So I'm getting, let's see here, looking down, we're shoving about 1,000 feet per minute, which is about the same as the Diamond, which it's on par. That'll definitely get us up pretty quick. Like I said, I'm doing about 80 knots, which is getting me about 74 over the ground because we've got that kind of westerly wind today kind of kicking us. Let's go take a look at our lovely little GPS here. Are you okay? Of course I'm okay. That's fine. And you can see we have the little display here with all the different information on it. And like I said, I get such a kick out of stuff like that. And normally what you could do, of course, you press the go to button, then you could just go through the different pages here and you can pick the one that you need to do. But unfortunately, because of the way I have it, I'm not going to worry about that too much. We're going to go to the root button. There's not going to be anything here. You'd have to manually dial all this information in order to be able to kind of use it. All right, that works for me. Ooh, look away from the controls for 2 seconds, and we're already kind of drifting all over the place. Again, nature of the beast in this one. If you notice, I let go of the controls. Do you see how it's pulling to the left? We haven't had much of that in the other trainers, but I think the real reason for that is on account of the fact that this was developed by a third party, and a lot of the Microsoft planes, they don't have that kind of wash action, and you don't nearly get the torque you do in the real plane, or the P factor, depending on what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and pause us, and I'll go zip us over to the training area, and we'll continue. All right, we're just about hitting the training area, and we're good to go. So the first thing that's kind of interesting about a warrior, and this is just kind of one of those neat little, not trivia things, but something that's different, is when we set our power and we get everything all nice and cruising and ready to go there, you'll notice the aircraft is actually tilted downwards. It's kind of difficult to see, but we're actually going downhill right now in order to travel straight in normal cruise here. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a pretty standard cruise and see what we get for speed here. Pull that nose up. This thing likes to sink. I really respect what they did with the trim because they slowed the acceleration of the trim down drastically inside of Flight Sim here, which makes it actually possible to trim, which is a wonderful thing. Thank you so much. I love that. All right, so we're getting about 110, which is not much, but remember this is actually a little low on the horsepower compared to some of the other aircraft that we've seen so far, so it doesn't surprise me. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a steep turn. Steep turns in this plane are a little weird because of how heavy the controls are in the real plane, I'm saying. So in this, of course, we just have to go ahead and tilt the plane, and we're going to bring it all the way over to our steep turn position, and we're going to have to pull back pretty hard. Now, like I said, in the real plane, you really got to crank on this thing in order to keep it going. All right, so it's a little bit easier than the Diamond. It's probably going to be about on par with the 172 as well. So there's our steep turn. Like I said, I'm holding it in exactly the same position. I'm not really having to work it too hard in one direction or the other, which is good. I think that's definitely preferred. So it's very, very, very stable. And that's going to be kind of the first comment here. And I think that's going to be the general trend with this aircraft. All right, go ahead and cancel out our steep turn. That's pretty good. We'll go ahead and bring it the other way now. Great way to make your DPE puke. Catch that before it gets away on us. And again, depending on which direction you're turning, you're going to have a very different experience as far as how difficult your steep turn is because of yourself fighting the rotation of the propeller. Let's go ahead and hold that. It's about the round. Let the nose come down just a teeny tiny bit. There we go. Perfect. This is always fun in the real world because basically you're picking a point on the nose and you're just kind of hold it there the best you can. I'm cheating just a teeny tiny bit here. Oh, let's go ahead and hold the right foot. And we're good to go. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad. That's about what we expect for a steep turn. I'd say it's definitely a little easier than the Diamond, but it's not necessarily as easy as those little tiny planes as well. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do our stalls. I'll go ahead and pull the throttle out. I don't have to engage the carburetor heat. That's one of the neat things because of the installation of the engine. It's a lot simpler. So we've gone a little bit slow here, so I'm going to go ahead and pop my flaps down. Remember, we got that big handle between us on the floor. Let it get slow. Let it get slow. Now, this plane, when it stalls, it's a little sudden, but it's not scary. And I can't pull back, and that's it. We're stalled. That's what a stall is supposed to look like. That's it. And we just fly ourselves out of the stall. That's nice. That's actually pretty accurate. The plane basically stops flying. It doesn't just go and do one of those. That's only if you're really goofing off. So let's go ahead and try a departure stall. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the nose back. We're going to apply full throttle. In the real world, we don't use full throttle. We use like 2400 RPM kind of a thing. A little bit of right foot here, a little bit of left foot. So what I expect it to do is just the nose just drops. Yes, that's correct. That was it. Oh my gosh, that is so much better. Oh yes. Oh yes, that's correct. Okay, that's awesome. That's the correct stall. Now, in all the aircraft we've taken a look at so far, for those who've watched the other videos, all of our stalls have resulted in like death spins. That is the first stall I think I've flown that is actually fairly realistic to what I remember with this plane. So I'm kind of happy about that. That's kind of nice. That's not bad. That's not bad. I appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and try it with a snap stall and see what happens this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'll let the nose come down. Remember, I have to travel a little nose down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend we pull back way, way too hard on the controls here. Nose comes up, nose comes up. Yeah, getting a little slow, full power. We're going to pull back as hard as we can. I love that. Here we go. Here it goes. And that's the stall. Oh my gosh, that's an improvement. That is an improvement. I like that. I can work with that. I can work with that. Now, when I was learning to stall this plane, they're a little more abrupt than that typically. But like I said, they did. That's nice. I can deal with this. That's awesome. All right, let's go ahead and make our way back to our original place that we took off from here. Going to come bring us back. It's going to be roughly east, southeast kind of a direction, sort of a thing. And like I said, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad at all. So what we're going to be interested in now is seeing what we have as far as economy as well as cruise capability goes. So I'm going to come swinging this way like this, pointing the general direction of Simsbury Airport, which is going to be off our nose. Go ahead and give ourselves plenty of trim here. And we'll go ahead and set our power. We're going to go to about, let's call it about 2,500 RPM here. So that should be about 25 right there-ish. Okay, it's not, a couple more RPM. Looking pretty good. That's getting us about, let's call it 105, 106 knots. Remember, this thing is not nearly as powerful as some of its contemporaries that have 4 seats, but it's not necessarily a bad thing either. So I'm at 4,000 feet it says I'm doing 116 over the ground. Remember, I have a tailwind of 6 knots though, so I'm doing about 110 over the ground. Economy-wise, I'm using, let's see here, just trying to take a look down, 9.7 gallons per hour, which is actually not very efficient. So one thing we'll have to do real quickly is go do a little bit of mixture leaning here. To do that, of course, it's easy because we have that giant EGT display right there on my left. You can watch as I'm pulling the mixture handle. Oop, too far. Let's go push that back the other way. A little bit more, Oop, too much. And right there. So that's going to be perfectly set. And that gives us 9.6 gallons per hour. So you can see even with the lean mixture, this is not the world's most, let's call it fuel efficient airplane for how much horsepower that it has. So it's definitely a trainer. It is definitely not a cruiser. All right, I'll go meet you folks on final approach. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and get ourselves all set up and put the sucker down on the ground. Pull that throttle out. The nice thing about this airplane, it is quite a peach to use in a traffic pattern if you've never had an opportunity to. The reason being is because what you do is you go ahead and pop up 2 clicks of flaps, and then you set your RPM to 1800, and then you will literally be perfectly set up for the purposes of approaching the runway. It's just that simple of an airplane to fly, which I love that. So we're doing what they call a cirrus approach. You're all sitting there saying, what's a cirrus approach? Well, it's what cirrus pilots seem to fly. So it basically means a straight in. There's no such thing as a traffic pattern. My plane is too fast for a traffic pattern. I don't know. I always find that kind of funny. That's really my buddy more than anything. All right, so there's our lovely runway. We're a little high here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the throttle back and let it sink just a little bit. Approach speed on this thing, I typically come in about 70 knots, which seems a little fast for a plane this size, but it actually is a little bit easier to fly it. So we do have the ability to use all 40 degrees of flaps if we need to, but typically I fly it at 25. One nice thing about 25 degrees of flaps is it gives you a little tiny bit more control if I have to slip the plane. So like right now I'm looking out the nose here and I can see I'm just about perfect. Yeah, there it is right there. So I'm just going to give it a couple RPM. We're doing, like I said, about 1700 RPM right now. There's 1800. And we basically just guide the thing in. Now, one of the kind of tricky things about this airplane, and this is true in the real plane too, is that because we are a low-winged airplane, this thing is going to want to float. So when you're coming in, you have to make sure that whatever your over-the-fence speed is pretty much right on what it's supposed to be. So there we go. We got our runway 21 there. I'm coming a little hot, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the throttle back. And we're just going to go sink onto the runway. Now, this is a little weird on this plane, because what you do is you get about 6 inches off the ground, and the plane just sits there. That's just what it does. You can see it doing it to me right now. All right. Choop-boop. Got easy on the brakes, and we are down. So you can see right away that this aircraft, because of that low wing, it really wants to scoot. So it's another one of those airplanes that forces you to be, look how tight of a turn I can turn with this. It forces you to be accurate. All right, let's go ahead and talk about all of this aircraft that we've seen. First things first, as far as avionics goes, pretty much standard organization here. The radio system, if you use it on default, not the greatest because we don't have that standby capability. The presence of an ADF, as well as VOR, as well as GPS is awesome because that means you can try everything on here. The fuel system is exactly okay. I'm not thrilled with the fact that I got to come over here and change my fuel system every once in a while. You can see I switched it to left a little while ago. It's just one more thing that you're going to forget to do kind of a thing, which is kind of sketchy. Economy-wise, it could probably be more economical. Again, I had set my mixture and everything correctly, and I was still burning quite a bit of fuel for only getting about 110 knots over the ground. So this is not the fastest of the trainers. Think of this as just like a souped-up two-seater trainer. That's the word I'm trying to use there. The other thing that's kind of neat about it is very, very easy to start. I love the flap handle, the fact that it's mechanical and very, very simple to operate. Visibility, visibility is decent. It is not a diamond when it comes to visibility. As far as appearance goes, pretty good. Handling wise, we climbed pretty quick. I got between 700 and 1,000 feet per minute, which is pretty typical if you only sit in 2 people in the front. Let's go surprise these guys over here real quickly. Come get some. Eat it. Other things that we can talk about with this aircraft as well is stall performance was awesome. This is the best stalling aircraft we've done so far on the series. That's what that feels like. It just kind of goes, oh. It doesn't immediately try to put you into a death spin. If you want a death spin, go fly a Tomahawk, not a Warrior. Other things, the steep turn was very, very simple. Once you kind of got it at the right angle, it just sort of hung out. I had to pull my controller back really, really far in order to hold that angle. It's just kind of a function of the people who designed this aircraft. But like this looks very, very linear, which you're watching right now. But of course, when I'm pulling back, that's a pretty significant amount of distance. I got to hold this thing back. The other thing we like is because of this is more so the developers than the aircraft itself, is we have such a wide variety of different options we can navigate with, which I think is really, really, really cool, because that means if you want to expand this and start doing some instrument flying with this, or you really want to use this for some kind of like long distance flying, you can actually pop over here and then utilize all of the avionics capabilities. Whoopsies, don't not do that. All the avionics capabilities of this in one really, really solid package. And again, this is a free package, so it makes it very, very easy. The airplane is not. Last comments on this one. Range, we're definitely going to be a little on the limited side, because even on a little tiny flight today, if I go pop this sucker open, you can see I'm down to 95% of my fuel. Remember, total flight time here was, let's see here, I'm looking at my clock now. It's, wow, that was about 10 minutes. So it really does suck down fuel fast. This is definitely a trainer. And then last but not least, of course, is when you are approaching it, while it's really, really easy to control the approach, the low wing will make you float quite a bit. Other than that, enjoy.